Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the RealNex webinar series. Today we'll be talking about Master the Market. I am Jeff Finn, your host, and joined by Matthew Smith, Head of Western Regional Sales and Business Development. And we're going to be focusing on how you become a master of the market. And as you know, all top producers specialize, and I'm not sure if all of you have a specialty or not, but we'll talk to you about the value of specialization and how to define your territory to make sure it's just large enough and not too big, but the right size, and how you can then work within that territory to profile every property, whether you have your own database or leverage third-party resources. And we'll talk about the RX data service that we have now to feed your system and give you a foundation of property. But the foundation is just the beginning of the solution, and it sort of sets the level playing field for everyone. And what's really important is your own proprietary knowledge, the nuances and details and special information that you have that no one else has, that really makes you the true market authority. We'll talk further about how you can use our mobile app to canvas the market, build stacking plans, track ownership and tenants in markets, build your photo library, and begin to build out a full detail of the tenant rosters with what what you think they have, as far as, if you don't know exactly what they have as far as space or expiration, help to estimate and begin to forecast out renewal opportunities. And then we'll talk a little bit about predictive marketing and using the RX data or other data that you have to really set forecasts for when sellers will be or owners will be most likely to sell, and who the best buyers are in the market. With our RX data, we build an ownership profile of each owner in the market based on what they've purchased in the past, and that really helps you target, and based on property type and ownership type, forecasting typical hold periods, and combining that with our loan information, it really gets to be very accurate in its ability to project who will be selling in the near future and who the best buyers are in the market. And then we'll show you how to use all of that information to build authoritative BOVs and OMs so that you can bring your properties to market priced right, priced ready to sell, and give the supporting information that your clients need to make great decisions. As always, we'll be recording the session. We'll be taking questions throughout, so if you have them, post them, and we will be sending a recording out of this the first of the week. So in case you miss it, or you want to share it, or you want to review it, you'll have it. And not only that, if you have any interest in our whole library of webinars, they're all available on our YouTube channel, so you can always check that out. So Matt, why don't you take it away? I'll hand the controls over to you. We'll interact along the way, and let's start talking about how do you define your market, and what's the sort of the right size of a market to make sure that you've got enough trading to make a living, make a fortune, and do great business.
Jeff, thanks as always for the introduction. I'm really excited for this class here today as defining your market. I talk about it a lot. So if you've had training with me personally, you'll hear me talk about defining your market, knowing your market. If you know your market, you own your market. And that's my go-to: know your market, own your market. And we want to figure out whether or not something's too big or too small. And knowing that footprint can really help you, and then visualizing that footprint will help you even more. And so with the RealNex program, you're going to be able to profile that information. And whether you're profiling that information from a property or a tenant space side, or you're doing it from a lease comp or a sales comp side, you can do it in a couple different places within inside of our program. The comps are going to be a snapshot in time, so it can give you a little bit more information on how many times those properties have traded or how many times those spaces have leased. So I think comps is a great way to be able to start to visualize that and know your market. And the idea is, if we're in a market, and maybe we're in a tertiary market, and that tertiary market we think has 500 trades a year, but we really don't know. It's tough to say what our possible income or is or could be. And one of the things with the RealNex program, we try to make as easy as possible for you, and that is making sure that that data is able to be seen. So leveraging third parties as well as RX data to really get this started, to start to understand and know your market. And one of the ways that I like to look at it is I like to look at property counts based upon information that's in my system. So whenever you click on properties, or if you're doing this to check for tenants and spaces, or you're doing it from the lease or sales comp side, in that section, you're going to be able to start drilling down. And if you notice down at the bottom of my page, it says 211. So if I am a general local specialist, right? Here I said that general local specialist, I work with land, I work with office, I work with industrial, I work with multifamily. I go ahead and I pull this information up and I have 212 properties. Those are 212 properties that are in my market. Out of those 212 properties, I recently looked in my RealNex program, was able to find out that out of those 212, 34 traded. So 212, I have 4 traded, and I was able to map those out where those properties trade. And again, if you're in a local market, you'll have something more like I did here in San Diego, and you can see those 35 properties are in San Diego. So I can see how many of those properties traded. So out of 212, 34 traded. Now, if I'm going to take ownership of those 212 properties, I'm going to call those building owners to get to know each one of those buildings and get to know each one of those properties very intimately. I can add more nuances and details to each one of the properties as I go, but those are 212 properties. And out of that, we have less than 10% or a little bit more than 10% that are trading. Now, out of those, what is my market share? And to look at your market share, you got to figure out who's your competitors in the market. If you're in a tertiary market, you might have less competitors than you would have in a more metropolitan area, but you would also have less properties. So the idea is if you have 34 properties to trade and you have a 20% market share, there's 6 properties. And can you list 6 properties and afford to pay your bills? If not, then you need to expand your market. And if you have too many, then you need to shrink your markets, because knowing your market is really important. When you're in our program, to start to define that and start to see that information, you can use any one of the tools in our program. One is filters. Simple filters allows you to simply filter things out. Like here I have my team, and then I wanted to see a date created for a property. Maybe I want to put a transaction date or a transaction price. And the more information I put down in here in my filters, the less information is going to show up. So if you are a market specialist in a local area, you're going to drill down to your market specific property type. And maybe that's agriculture, or maybe that's gas stations. Maybe it's hospitality, industrial, office, retail. And then from there, the attributes that you might specialize in. If you take each one of these filters off, it'll add more information to it. If you want to do an and/or filter, that could be multifamily or office, you simply just go to our advanced filter. Now, once you have, and you're starting to define your market a little bit more, we then can start setting you up to really look at your market and to see what the opportunities are. And that's where leveraging the data from third-party sources via our system or RX data can really help you. The RX data platform really helped me in the way that I was able to come in and look at a market from a sales comp standpoint. That's kind of where I like to do everything, is from a sales comp standpoint. So I really can see how many properties have traded. I have 42,764 properties that are in my comps. Now this will help me define a market. Defining that market can be based upon many things. And you'll notice that some people, when they come in there, go, Matt, hey, you have duplicates. Well, that's the idea, because then we can see how many times that one property traded. And we can easily do that just by simply clicking the list view. And then we can sort by any one of the fields. We can sort by parcel number. We can sort by address. We can sort by building class, or we can sort by all the above. So then we can start seeing here, like East Charlton traded here, and then it traded again. And you can see it traded in 2012 for 1.4 million, and it traded again in October 14th of 2021. We can also see the companies that purchased it and sold those buildings. So seeing it from a comp side standpoint really helps me, but use works best for you. You can do it from a comp standpoint, and that's sales or lease comps. And then it has those data points. And again, you can narrow down your data criteria depending on what your specialty is, just by simply selecting all types. Now I have 42,767. If Jeff and I had to go and call 42,767 property owners in my market, we know that's too big. Or maybe we need to hire more people, have them part of RealNex, and start chopping that up a little bit more. But we want to start redefining our market. And maybe that is starting with a city or multiple cities, depending on what the population or the size or the trades that happen in that area. And those are going to be some great ways that you can really start to define your market. And like I tell everybody, is write it down. Write down, my market is San Diego, I specialize in multifamily and industrial, and I really would like to work in the Chula Vista National City area. And then you can start seeing how many properties are there, and then start expanding that on there to define your market. Jeff, do you have any other tips for defining your market and really starting to know that market? Also, anytime you create a filter, you can save those filters. So you can have it like my market, Stephanie's market, Larry's market, Steven's market. So then you can see what their market is and how it's defined, and then you can see those updated transactions in there as well.
Yeah, I think that you're right on target, Matt. You know, we had a mastermind last year, some time ago, with Bo Berry from Gainesville, Florida, multifamily specialist. And I've talked to so many agents in secondary, tertiary markets, and they all generally say that they have to be a generalist because their market's too small. And what Bo said is, instead of me working Gainesville, I'm going to work Northern Florida. So we ended up with a database of about 1,000 properties, and it was maybe 700 owners. So he found that that property, that market traded in maybe 3%, 5% range. So out of 1,000 properties, if call it 50 properties were trading, and he can get 20% of that, and 10 properties, and each one was $100,000 fee, he can make $1 million. So he's got a big enough market to hit his target, and those aren't his exact numbers, but I'm sort of just setting it up for experience sake. But the numbers sort of roll like that, where Bob Knackel was also on, and he talked about Manhattan, where he does development site sales, and he knows that year in and year out, 2.5% of the properties trade. So he has his team going block by block across the market in Manhattan, so they work a much tighter geography, and they can drill down and work a different size market, but make sure they have a big enough pool of properties within that market that they can stay in touch with those properties, become expert in the properties, know the owners, and you talk about the comps. I mean, there's a lot of uniqueness to a comp, and it's not just what you see on a transaction report, but it's what was the motivation of the seller. Were there other repairs that needed, or rights that were needed, or zoning that was needed, or things that happened that cost more? So how does that adjust? But I think the idea of specialization is key, because in good times and bad, clients are going to be attracted to specialists who are known for something. And if you're known to be the multifamily guy in Northern Florida, you're going to get more than your share than the generalist in Gainesville would. So you wouldn't be able to compete for certain things if you're the generalist in Gainesville versus the multifamily guy for Northern Florida. So brand yourself, use your specialization to build your brand, build your expertise, communicate that expertise, and by sharing your information, by staying in touch with, by having that market the right size, you're able to stay in touch with your property owners on a regular cadence, so you're constantly in front of them and they know who you are when it's time for them to transact.
Yeah, fantastic. And we're going to leverage third-party data, right? So the more data you have, the better it is. And people ask me this all the time, Jeff, where's the best place to get the data? Well, there is no best place. The best place to have your data is in RealNex, but the best place to get your data is everywhere. That's from additional brokers, that's from RX data, that's from the third-party companies that you see out there. And with RX data, we put it in your system automatically for you, and then we update it every quarter. We're going to be adding in more and more details as we get those details. But you can also easily bring it in from Excel, right? Everybody utilizes Excel. Most data can be put into Excel. And then to bring it in from Excel, it's real easy. We give you a couple options. One is we have an import wizard through RX data that can help you with some of the third parties that are out there. You can also download our template. Now, there is a misnomer that you have to use our template. You don't. Other programs force you to use your template. We do not. You can use any Excel spreadsheet. We recommend you have headers that make it easier for you. They do not have to be named the same in the field. You're simply selecting the field in your spreadsheet, the field in our program. You then can save that, so then you can import the information every quarter, every week, every month, whatever that would be, to help update that information as well as complete the foundation. Now, this information is going to be your proprietary information. And you can see here that I saved a filter called Jeff's Market. So every time I want to see what's updated in my market, I know that I had 1,000 records before, and now I have 1,102. Now I have 102 additional trades, which would be 10% of my market. I like to go more block by block and know the area. Now, one of the things you can start looking at is the buildings, and I was speaking with Jeff before about this, is we're starting to see the to-goes start. So Buffalo Wild Wings is starting to go, and other companies are starting these to-goes, and they're downsizing some of the retail shops. Knowing that there's availability or there's spaces being redemised, and knowing that history on the building can really help you and understand that market. So if 901 Brush Street was originally 264,000 and now it's maybe 400,000, obviously I'm just making numbers up, as you can see it is exactly the same. You can see what changed. You can also start to see a little bit of a pattern, and maybe I'm going off on a little tangent on this predictive analytics, but what we're talking about is how do we start seeing a pattern of what's the predictability of someone trading. We can start seeing how long the holding periods are typically on a property or an asset class, or maybe certain LLCs and so forth can start to do that. And I'll talk a little bit more as we go on, so I don't spoil the predictive marketing segment on there. We can also add our own details. So this information is yours. So as you're aggregating that information and you're out there and you're updating information, you have the ability to add the true owner, add any comp nuances in there, any building particulars. Maybe it's going to be an anchor, an elbow. Maybe there used to be a Jiffy Lube. Maybe someone's house used to be by there. Any of those details, you can simply go ahead and add to any one of these properties and add some notes as you're going through and you're working with these property owners. As you're walking those buildings, you're canvassing those buildings, and you're seeing those buildings, you're able to update that information in the field. You can also customize the view that you see here just by clicking views and editing. So if you're working in hospitality and you want to see the number of doorknobs or other details about the hotel, you can create those fields in there to see that information. And if you're seeing some of the fields in here that are in my program and you don't have them, then that means that you just don't have access to what we call custom layouts. And our custom layout here I created, this one here is particularly for multifamily. So as I'm going through multifamily, you'll see in here that we'll have a multifamily process. My bandwidth is really getting cut up here. Let me try to turn some of this stuff on. I switched to our Wi-Fi so I can go on there, and it looks like it's giving me a little bit of a problem here. But you'll notice that in some of these, you're going to be able to create these custom layouts that then you can load so you have those data points that are going to help you leverage the data that's in there. Jeff, on to the next one. What's the next one up?
Yeah, I think the next thing we want to do is really, you talked about we talked a little bit about it, but dig into getting to true owners, the nuances of comps, maybe understanding the things in your database that no one else knows that gives you an edge. How do you really use your database to build this, and not overnight, but over time, to have the asset in your database that you can continue to refer to and reference to build business. And maybe it's part of using the mobile app. And we're going to talk about using the mobile app to canvas in the market.
So let's talk about a couple of those things. Let's talk about, let me pull up a multifamily example here, and I think everybody can resonate with this one. And there's going to be particulars about that. So I went ahead and I created a multifamily template this morning, and I wanted to show everybody how to keep track of some of the particulars. So if yours doesn't look like mine, we can make yours look like mine. If you want to make it look different, that's awesome. There's some building particulars that I want to keep track of, and that is an opportunity zone or an AUD. And when I say those, is it AUD compatible, meaning that does it have garages that we can convert into an AUD or ADU, I'm sorry. Or is it an opportunity zone? Is it coastal zone? Is it inland zone? Those are different particulars that you might want to really know about buildings that you can send and to start uploading that information and updating that information in our program. Jeff also mentioned that we want to find the true owner for these properties, right? To find some of the true owner information, what's neat is during that journey, as we're looking for some of that true owner information, you can utilize some of the tools that are built in our program. So you might only have the LLC, or you might not have anything yet. But if you have the LLC, you can click on the company itself, and it can give you some really good insights. One is, if that LLC owns multiple properties, you'll see that right in here that those LLCs own multiple properties. And you might not know who to contact there, but utilizing our web links, you can go ahead and you can click on Google, and you can search the name and address of the company, and now you can pull up that company information. And most likely you're going to find them on LinkedIn, you're going to find them on social media like Facebook, you're going to find them other places. So you can start building that relationship and connecting that information. And as you're doing it, you're knowing it. And the more you do it, the more you know it, the better your system becomes. So really adding those details on your own becomes so impactful, because you get to realize that when you were searching for the true owner, you found out that Pat Sajak is the primary contact, and Pat used to work at the Wheel of Fortune, and you used to love watching the Wheel of Fortune as a kid. So there's a lot of things that start to connect, and you might think that that's a total joke, and it is, but I'm telling you, we live in 1 degree of separation, maybe 2 degrees of separation now, and it's amazing how quickly things can start to connect. And the more you can connect to that information, the better your presentations are going to be, the more market expert you're going to be, and the better you're going to be overall. And I think just understanding how you can use that data to your advantage is super, super important. I'm going to try to share my screen with everybody here in a second if we're ready to go on and take a look at the mobile app, because I think that is one of the things that people forget as well, is when they're going out and they're canvassing the territory, they have access to our mobile app that your data can be accessible from.
A couple of questions while you're doing that, Matt, and I think they're really on point here. One is about, can you add non-arm's length transaction data? And that's exactly the value of this, because if you know that it's not an arm's length transaction and your competitor doesn't know that, and they saw that something traded at $1 million when you know it was a father selling to a son or whatever it might be, and it was just it's a low number for some reason, someone uses that as a comp, and you knew that was a reason for that, and you can describe that, and you have your documentation. Then when it comes time for pricing or a BOV, you can make an appropriate adjustment so it stands out and you're coming in to support higher pricing. And another question was with regard to can you find the comps from the property module? The properties are related to comps, but you find the comps in the comps module, and you find all the details there. You can create a comp from a property. And Matt, if you want to show how they link together.
Yeah, I'll show you 2 ways, right? And that's a great question. So one is, if a property traded, you can easily create a comp. Now it's going to carbon copy the information. And when I say carbon copy, it's going to pull out the details on the property. You're going to add in there the sale price and sale date. And now we can go ahead and we can save that as a comp. Now, Jeff mentioned you're going to have a separate comp area. But with being a true relational database, if I wanted to pull up all the comps that are linked to these properties, so you're an RX data user, or you imported the data through our comps area, it can bring in the property and tie it to the comp. Now, it will typically tie it up to 2 transactions, like Grape Street traded here twice. All I need to do, if I want to pull up those comps, I can say linked here, and then I can pull up the information and look up the links from that side. Or I'm sorry, the other way around, I can go link properties, and I can do it from this side. But again, it's fully relational, so you can see that information within inside of the program. And then you can see here under links, so you can see it's linked here, it's linked here, and it's linked here if there's any trades. Now, if it hasn't traded, it may or may not show up in here, but if it's not available to us, then it won't show up in here. But you can see this property traded and this property traded. And if you click on it, it will pull up that comp inside of our comp library for that information. But yeah, being the link in the relatable portion in there is great. And then you can see what it traded for, when it traded. And there are a lot of different nuances in there. And then this information is usable inside of our evaluation tool, which we'll get to. And you can do above average, below average, inferior, and so forth. And you're able to adjust those comps. So then again, becoming the market leader is the one that's going to help with that. So let me go ahead and see if I can open up my web screen. I should be able to get on this. I am trying to do a little trickery here where I'm going to stream this from Zoom off my phone to here so we can have both screens up at the same time. Now, all the information that's inside of my RealNex program is available to me. So the 33,317 properties are all available to me on my phone. So one of the things that you may want to do is you may want to go ahead and create a predefined filter or even a group of some of the properties. And then every week, every quarter, every day, you might want to walk some of those properties. And as you're walking those properties, you can add details to those properties. Maybe that's going to be details of photos in the field. So you just hit the photo button and you can add photos in the field. Maybe that's going to be detailed information for the tenants. I was talking to a medical team yesterday, and one of the things that's really neat is you can go over to an office building or an industrial space or a retail shopping center and take pictures of their signage. Take pictures of maybe the parking, so you reference what the parking was like, or take other pictures of attributes of the building. And then all those photos are able to be utilized in our comparative lease analysis, and they're able to be used in our marketing brochures and flyers in our full broker opinion of value and offering memorandum flyer creation tool. So not only can you add the tenants from here by simply just hitting add and putting floor 1 and suite 101 and adding a tenant, you can put what kind of property is it, office, retail, is it vacant, is the tenant in there, any additional square footage you may have. You can take pictures inside of the building. If you talk to an owner when they're there, you can add the ownership information out there as well by just hitting edit, and we can go ahead and tie in an owner or a site contact or an agent, and it's going to start building out more and more of those details. So it really starts to build and fulfill that that data side. And if you get lost somewhere, you can always get directions and look it up on a map. And now we can look at the property on a map, and I can get directions to my next building. So sometimes you might want to go ahead and create that filter, pop it into a group, load the group, and start walking those properties. If you have, then you can verify when those property information is tried and true. And whoever knows the market owns the market. If you know the building, you own the building. If you know the tenants, you own the tenants. And that's how it is. And when I say that, I mean that people want to do business with people who know the most. If I'm going to a doctor, I want to go to a specialist that knows exactly about my scenario that I'm in, and not someone that is going on ChatGPT to look it up and try to figure out what my problem with my sinus infection is and how to fix it. Anytime you're out there, you can also use programs like CamCard, EverContact, and so forth. We recommend you take pictures of business cards. Most business card apps will synchronize directly to Outlook or Gmail. Those will synchronize to our program automatically. So that will streamline that process. Also, if one of these tenants or building owner emails you and they're not in your system, you can turn that email into a contact using our new app inside of Google as well as Outlook, and that'll turn that email right into a contact using that special add-in. The add-in is free, so you can download it in the App Store for Google, and you can also download it in the App Store for Microsoft Outlook that turns emails into contacts right in Outlook or Gmail. And that will streamline that process of really entering the information, but you can put some other details about the owner or the tenant, things they like or don't like out there, and that really just, again, helps you be that market specialist. So let me turn off that side in here. Are we ready to go into the next one, Jeff?
I think, Matt, this is great. You've built your database, you've got your information in, you've added your own special sauce to it through your mobile canvassing. And now, how do you find the most likely sellers? How do you use the data and begin to think about holding periods and based on property type and ownership type to really begin to target? And so you're focusing on that 5% that's likely to transact this year versus the 95 that is probably off in the future.
Yeah, and I think as you start to look at different data points, and that's where I really start to like the custom views and also the custom layouts, is because the data that I track might be different than the data you track. And the more we can start seeing this data is start to help build some of those trends. So if we can see here in 1950 Simon Street and 1950 Simon Street here, they traded 14 years apart. We can start seeing this one traded here and this one traded here, and it traded 3 years apart. So we're starting to get a little bit of predictive analytics in there to figure out what ones would trade. Also, for the similar side on the property side, so not to move too fast in the property, the comps, is we can also keep track of things like note expiration date, that could be something, or interest rate. And we have a lot of those details that we can provide you through our RX data, or you can go ahead and you can get that data from other sources. Maybe it's default data. Any of those fields of data that you have, you can bring in. We can also see that, maybe we have a cap rate on a property and someone purchased a property at a 4.5 or a 4 cap. Right now everything's at 8.5 cap or something like that. So maybe there's clients that want to exit, and you can use any kind of data points to do that. So here is a 7% interest rate, and it's a 30-year loan, but maybe they want to get out of that loan, or maybe they had a 15% interest rate or a 12% or a 6%. Maybe they had a 5-year IO, and now their interest payments are coming on board. You can use any of these data points to start figure out that information. And then you can load any of these data points using our filters. So if you wanted to filter out and you found your right data points, that can pull up things like note expiration, or you can find out things like a certain cap rate and sort by that. It's going to really start to help you. And you can also turn a filter and a view and combine those into things like base view, loan maturity view, active listings view, and so forth, that when you hit this button, not only is it going to pull up your filter, but it's also going to create that custom view for you. So think about those data points that can really help you, whether that's loan data, or maybe that's data in here for the transactions, and you can start building that up. And back to Jeff's point, we can start seeing some of the LLCs, and we can start seeing their holding periods. So if you have an LLC in here like Murphy Barbara, and they have 15 trades, and you see that they traded every, I don't know, 5 to 8 years, you can predict that they're most likely going to trade again within the next 5 to 8 years, and you can look at one of their purchases in there. And again, that will start to help you. You can do the same thing with tenants as well. So if you see a lot of tenants turning based upon the lease comps, or how many tenants are going to turn because their leases are coming up to expiration, that's going to help you market to those tenants. Let's focus on all the tenants that have leases expiring in the next 6 to 18 months versus the tenants that just signed their lease last week. And it's going to allow us to focus on that. So if you focus on 1,100 properties, but then you focus on the 102 that are more likely to trade, and then go after the rest, then I think that you'll really start to know your market and know your market. And using that predictive marketing will allow you to target those potential sellers or those potential buyers. If you see one of these LLCs that's continuing to buy properties every 5 years or 2 years or 3 years, why don't you go out and see if you can represent them for the buy side, or take your listings you have and pitch those listings to them. Send them a portfolio through RealNex of here's a portfolio that I think would be good based upon your buying history. I'll tell you, that'll impress the heck out of it.
So Matt, one of the things that is done automatically with RX data is all of those comps do pre-populate the company profile and consolidate all of those trades under that company profile. So you know that Matt Smith LLC and M Smith and MLS and all these different Matt Smith LLCs all are part of Matt Smith Holdings, and he's purchased or owns currently 25 multifamily properties between 10 units and 50 units in San Diego County, and they're all between $1 and $3 million. So the next time you have a $2 million multifamily property, he's a good prospect for that. So it not only builds you the comp, but it builds that best buying criteria because of what somebody's actually done, not what they say they're going to do. And what's also cool about that is if you see Matt has 25 multifamily properties and 1 gas station, you might say, hey, Matt, what are you doing with that gas station? Let me sell it for you. That doesn't fit in your portfolio.
I'm definitely not selling any of my gas stations, Jeff, so sorry. But yeah, I mean, look, and you can see here, what I did is I took a sales comp and I pulled up the buyer on there, and then I pulled up the company, and I can see the properties, and then I can see the trades. And then I can start building out their portfolio and understanding what they have. They own these currently properties. Here's some square footage, and we're starting to build that out. And it's interesting as we work with clients around the world that they don't have anything called an exclusive listing. There's no listing agreement, there's nothing. Everything is an open listing, whether that's landlord, tenant rep, sale, it's an open listing. And so what they're doing is, we've learned a lot from them. And what we're learning from them is they're taking this information just like we're doing here, and they're doing that on their end, because they have to come up to Jeff and say, hey, Jeff, just like Jeff mentioned, hey, you got multifamily, what are you doing with the gas station? Or, hey, you got 5 properties here, what are you doing with that property there? And they have to then come to that tenant, or come to that landlord, or come to whoever that would be, and show them that they have a problem. And that's how they make their money. We're very lucky.
Just go up a level to that company profile. You went from the property to the company into their portfolio, but now look at the property type fields, and you've customized your profile, which is great, and we need to talk about that. But the ability, what's showing is under the details, because Matt owned certain retail and office properties, it's going to code in the type of properties that he likes, those properties. And it's going to track the size range and the value range that he's actually purchased based on. So there's that property type detail automatically filling in. So then when you run a query against your database, you're going to find him as the most likely buyer for those new listings that come in that meet that. And you'll see the minimum price he's bought was at $1,040,000 up to the max of $4,500,000, and he's done everything from 5,339 square feet to up to 45,000 square feet. So if you have 250,000 square feet, he's probably not the guy for it. But if it's 10,000 square feet or 30,000, he's likely.
Yeah, and you can use all these data points. And again, if you want to customize these, so some of the data points are at the top, or define these in different areas, you can simply just click on the page layouts and create your own custom page layout, and they're really easy to do that. You can drag and drop, move them around. You can, even delete them if you don't want to see them, and remove that whole section, and really just customize it for you to be the end all be all. Now, if you are in a team, do not change your default. Create your own layout here. That layout is going to be either private to you or available for people to apply, but it doesn't affect anybody else as long as you don't change that layout inside of the program. That's a default for everybody. But you can see how that's giving you in that predictive mode for the buyers and sellers in there, and it's really just populating that data. And that doesn't even consist on the contact level of all the buying criteria you've gotten from private capital and so forth, that you can start really building out inside the contact side of things. We're talking on the company side, using the company, the sales comps, the lease comps, and so forth, but you can also build out your private capital buyers and individual buyers and individual tenants and so forth within inside the program. And I have in here target cap, target IRR, target GRM, my client rating. We talked about that the other day. A client, 2.5 million to 5 million, and he's individual investor. Perfect. So there's a lot of things that we can do to really start streamlining that predictive marketing side. And then all that information that you're gathering for the property is all available for you to start pushing into our financial analysis tool. And all those comps that you're gathering are able to be added into that comp section. So when you do talk to an owner, or you're ready to create that market analysis, like Jeff mentioned before, you saw that one property traded that really shouldn't be in its use as a comp. Someone else is valuating their property under. And I'll never forget, I think it was NACL that went ahead and posted it, and someone went ahead and valued a property at like 48 million, and I'm just spitballing here, and they came in and valued the property like 78 million, and they sold it for like 82 million. And it's because someone undervalued the property based upon not knowing the market. And so in the market is going to really help you streamline those valuations. And also the information you're putting in is going to streamline your valuation creation. So not only is it streamlining your valuation creating, but you're also creating better valuations. So when Jeff wants me to sell my gas station, I tell him no. And I say, Jeff, did you know your property is worth 4.8 million? Or Jeff says it to me. I said, no, the last valuation I got was 3 million. And that's because Jeff knows the market. And you know the market, you own the market. It'll streamline that process from bringing in the property details. It'll bring in the price if you have it. It'll bring in things like the APN number, the square footage. It'll put in the number of mixes or units in there if it's multifamily or office, retail, mixed use. From here, you can add things like the land value assumption. Here in California, or where Jeff is in Florida, maybe it's going to be a higher land value. We can put any resale expenses. We can put our discount rates in there, any tax information or general vacancy, any income that's inside of that building here, we can put in for the income side. If we don't have the complete rent roll or the unit mix, you can easily upload it from Excel right into our program. You can put the leases in there. I was working with a developer this morning and showing them how they were able to get all their projections for their tenants as they come in. We showed them how to do the VR. They were blown away that you can do everything in one program. This is for multifamily. If it's for retail, office, mixed use, you'll see tenant information with escalations built in there. Things like miscellaneous income, laundry, parking, pet deposit, and so forth are in there, or pet fees. And then again, I can switch it to an individual rent roll analysis where then we can put the escalations, reimbursements, and so forth. As you're underwriting some of these deals, you might find out there's going to be a lot of turnover in the next 16 to 18 months. And maybe they're one of those shopping center owners that are going to be downsized to the to-goes. I just saw driving to work here, there's 20,000 square feet. It looks like a grocery store is leaving. So that shopping center is something they might want to sell prior to that, but it's not my business on that. Any expenses you want to put in, you can put any expenses in here. You can itemize your expenses, or you can put all your expenses in one. These are all customizable for you. Things like scheduled income, reserve replacements, detailed expenses with capital expenses, or you can skip it all and just do a quick income analysis based upon the income and expenses. Any debt services. I heard someone tell me that they didn't need to use our program anymore because nobody's buying properties. And I said, what do you mean? Interest rates are too high. Well, let's look. Let's look at the income. Let's look at the expenses. Let's put in the debt services. And let's put in the loan rate. Let's put in any points and closing costs, and let's look what it is. And, you know, come to their surprise, there was actually an opportunity, and that property was well priced, and it is something that they should be listing. It'll give you projections, up to a 20-year projection. You can go and analyze each lease. You can get a cumulative analysis or an APOD, and then all this information will come out to a beautiful authoritative broker opinion of value. You can use one of our cover sheets that we have in our program here, landscape and portrait. You can add photos, add maps. You can draw on the page. You can load one of our many templates in here where you have company templates for your company or RealNex templates here for you, and just load one of those templates, close, that information's in there. You can even customize your own pages. Things like a team bio we want to show in here. It's going to show my whole team on here, their photos, what their specialty is. I can move the information up, move the information down. I can type in here text. I can add additional text here. I can even drag a map in there if I want to show a map or available spaces or anything else for other customized pages. I can even drag and drop PDFs in here, or upload PDFs, upload PDFs to this. And if there's pages I don't want, I can simply take them out. With this here, we can go to our BOV. And if I don't show this to you, Jeff's going to call me and say, you should have shown this. And he's right. Anytime you want to bring in comps, you can come over here, or a comp library. You can import comps from the Excel, or you can bring them in from the CRM. And then from here on the valuation, this is exactly what we were talking about earlier, Jeff was talking about, is you have a conservative, average, and aggressive. And you can see here, here's an income, but here's a sales comparison valuation. And you can see in here that we have our sales comp. We have a subject 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we have above average, average, above average, average. And then it's going to give us an adjusted analysis. And this adjusted analysis can separate you from somebody else. If you're in a non-disclosure state, this is going to separate you from somebody else. If you're a tenant rep, landlord broker, and you're tracking lease comps, those are the comps that are going to change the lease rates and your negotiations. Comps are really important, and this is how you can see to use them. And then you can go ahead and add additional notes on there. This is a good condition property, however, previous to that property, blah, 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 blah. Whatever your narrative is, it's going to help you raise the valuation or lower the valuation depending on different things. So use the information that you're gathering to create your flyers. I was talking to someone earlier that said, I used to leave a leave behind all the time. And I'm like, oh, wow, someone actually says leave behinds. And when they're out canvassing those 1,100 buildings and they're taking pictures in the field, next time they go to the building, because they're going out constantly to those buildings, right? We're turning those buildings over and over again. They take pictures in the field. They create a one-page flyer through here. They print them out, and they go and they walk all the buildings that they just did 3 months ago with flyers with their photos and their information on it. And I'll tell you, that's one heck of a calling card. It makes a huge difference when you're out there walking those buildings, taking those pictures. And then not only that, you give the information back to the building owner and so forth on details on their building. It's pretty cool. Jeff, how are we doing on time?
Yeah, I think we're about to wrap up, but there's a number of questions coming in, and just want to maybe deal with them and then see if there's any more before we wrap up. That's great We didn't get to the OM, but I think that this was, I think the idea of the BOV and how does it get shared would be something to wrap up with. But on the comps, we don't have cap rates particularly, but if you did have cap rates, then we do give you the ability. That's one of those additional pieces that you get to plug in, and some of the nuance that you get to know if you know it, and you can make that happen. And you can put the comps in, then you can compare comps from market to market, property type to property type. And then you've got the ability to put all that information into your presentations.
Jeff, you also notice here I said auto calc or not auto calc. If you put
Yep.
the information in, it'll actually create your cap rate for you off the calculator. So if you do want it to calculate a cap rate, it can, as long as you have the information in there, and then you can sort that.
Perfect. Any more questions coming in? We'll give you just another minute to see if you have any.
What's the name of the app that converts email contact info to Google Contact? Keith, come on, it's ours. It's RealNex. RealNex app. It's ours. So you can go ahead and you can get the app in Microsoft or Google, and you watch the videos. They're on our YouTube. They're on my YouTube. You can watch the videos. It'll walk you through how to plug it in. But that's ours. It's good to see you on here, Keith. I haven't seen you for a little while. But yeah, it'll turn that right into there. So our app will turn emails right into contacts. And our system will work with all states, including California. So yes, if you're in California, we're happy to do all states for you. CamCard will do the Outlook and take pictures of it. However, our app will turn emails right into right in there. And let's see here, got some other questions coming in.
Yeah, we are recording and will be distributed first of the week, as I mentioned earlier. And I thought I answered this before about cap rates. So if you have any of the comp statistics, you could generate a report to say that your cap rates in California are 4%, and in Nevada they're 6%. So there's your California investors move to Nevada if you can have that data. So you'd have all this information. It could all go into Excel. You can slice and dice it however you'd like, and do all kinds of analysis with it.
As you're getting some of that data, you see here at my cap rate put at 0%, and that's because I did auto calculate. So if you go ahead and you put some of that information, it'll start auto calculating the cap rate. And look, Rome wasn't built in a day. I know David and I will probably meet up at the multifamily council, but he was going through and doing some really cool stuff with drag and drop photos for pictures and stuff. And it really gets you an understanding of who you're dealing with, what company you're dealing with, what properties they have, and then maybe the problems they have no clue about.
Appreciate it, Matt. It's time to wrap up. Thanks to everyone for sticking with us. Went a little bit longer than targeted, but great content to cover. So thank you all for joining us. Thanks, Matt, for the demonstration, and we look forward to seeing you all at future sessions.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.